Welcome back to College Football Addiction. Drake C. Toll, Locked on Big 12, chatting with us a little bit today. Our video presented by BetUS. More on them later. Drake, we got some big news, really just even this week, about revenue sharing, Title IX, some things we had talked about in the past, some things that I thought were very bad for college athletics. Listen, we don't get super political on this, but this did come down from the new administration that's in D.C., that some changes that concerned us for several reasons are now changed back to the old way, and probably a really good thing for all of the teams and programs that we support.
Yeah, again, I'm not going to get political on this. This is just the way it reads from Front Office Sports. It says the Department of Education has rescinded guidance mandating revenue sharing payments be proportionate between men's and women's sports. So explain it to me like I'm five. Just because Title IX exists doesn't mean that we're going to give women's athletics as much money as the men's side. Again, this is coming from Front Office Sports and is based on the Department of Education. Now, does that department still exist and in what capacity? It's very tough to tell. We don't know a lot for the national scale, and we don't know exactly how far this goes. Can you just overrule Title IX? Can you take Title IX out of this? The federal government is so deep in this, it seems a lot tougher than just throwing it out there that now men's athletes will be paid a lot more than women's athletes. And how will universities approach this if Title IX is not at the forefront of revenue sharing? And if you're out there going, what in the world is revenue sharing? I don't blame you, because a lot of this is tough to get through. A lot of this is very clunky to understand. Revenue sharing is where each school can opt in $22 million to give to its student athletes. Then Linda Livingstone, who's on the board of a whole lot of deals and the president of Baylor University, says, where does Title IX play into this? You know, should it be even for men's and women's sports? And no one has answered that question until I guess now, based on Front Office Sports, with them rescinding the weeks-old guidance mandating that NIL resources from athletic departments and revenue sharing be proportionate. So if the football team gets $20 million, and then it's NIL and revenue sharing combined, then the volleyball team and the softball team, you're going to have to see that same number add up when 150 male athletes and 150 female athletes are in the pot for a singular athletic department. What this means is now, if you're Kirby Hocutt at Texas Tech, now if you're Jamie Pollard at Iowa State, football's keeping the lights on everywhere, and we need to be very good at football. The better we are at football in Colorado, the better our economy is for our city, the better that our athletic department sits. The lights can stay on even longer at the baseball stadium. So from here, you're going to see revenue sharing really lean football, 80+% going football and men's basketball, because by and large, at every university, that's what's paying the bills. That's not me trying to give you an opinion. It's just the way athletic directors are going to go when there is no longer a Title IX-esque deal that says you have to pay everyone equally.
Yeah, no, and I like, not trying to have a hot take here or anything, but I like women's athletics. I am going tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., probably today if you're watching this on Thursday. I'm going to a women's college softball tournament here in Clearwater. Like, I love it. I take my kids. We're going up for beach volleyball in a couple of weeks to something that they've got for Florida State. Like, we really like and
my sister's a freshman softball player at Baylor,
I support that, but I also just have pretty decent common sense, right? And so Title IX, to me, the fairness of scholarship equality is totally, I'm totally good with that. Hey, you need to have X number of male athletes, then you need to have X number of female, right? And most schools have more female to always account for the extra people that you need to take. But Title IX, to me, does not stretch to the overarching athletics department, right? There's no Title IX rule that says, hey, you got to spend the same on your football program that you do on your beach volleyball program, right? You got to spend the same on your football program that you do on women's soccer and women's softball combined or anything like that. And so my fear was that in an effort to bring about equality in revenue payments, that they were going to end up hurting more women's athletes than they helped, because I think what athletic directors and what programs would have done is they just cut some of their male sports and thus been able to cut some of their female sports so that they could pay more to the football team, because football is going to get theirs. And you mentioned basketball as well. Obviously a big key, especially in the Big 12. We talk about a lot, a big part of what is paid as well. But this was going to have the opposite effect than I think people wanted it to have, because in being equal, they would have just lowered the total number of athletes completely. Hey, you ain't going to carry 105 football players. You're going to go back to 80, and we're going to pay them the way that we need to remain competitive. And so I think that even though they're not going to be making the same amount of money, this is ultimately what's good for both men and women's athletes. I will get right back to chatting with Drake, but first, I want to tell you about our friends over at BetUS. The Super Bowl coming up in a little over a week. If you're betting on that, if you're betting on college hoops, if you're betting on anything sports related, make sure you're doing it with our friends over at BetUS. Right now, you can use our code YouTube150 to get a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit, 125% on your next two, all of that up to $2,000. We appreciate BetUS for their support this season and hope that you'll be betting with them.
Possibly. And TJ, to add an addendum to that, from how I read all of this from that front office sports article, it says the claim that Title IX forces schools and colleges to distribute student-athlete revenues proportionately, so to give even money across the board, based on gender equity considerations, is sweeping and would require clear legal authority to support it. That does not exist. That is what we're looking at, is a way to govern how revenue sharing and NIL will look in the future. The NCAA has not been clear on this. The United States government has not been clear on this. No one has voted in that even under Title IX being still a very large institution in college athletics, that revenue sharing will have to be equal across the board. And many schools, the article list says they plan to award 75% of total revenue sharing allocations to their football players alone. That's not even men's basketball. That's not even including baseball. It's just football. The guidance also cited an objection to the House versus NCAA settlement, which said the settlement's terms violated Title IX. So in essence here, TJ, no matter what you or I say, our opinions, our thoughts, what common sense may say, this really all boils down to everyone in this room looking around and saying, hey, what should we do here? And no one stepping up to be the governor of revenue sharing and giving clear and concise direction on how Title IX plays into it. More or less, the way this all reads is no one really knows what to do, so we're just going to give all the money to the football team.
Which, whether people agree with that, I'd assume most of our viewers want that to happen, right? You may have specific interests that keep you from having that viewpoint, but I think most people that are tuning into our channels probably want that to be the case. But no matter what, there's no disagreement in what you said earlier. Football is what pays the bills. And if football can't keep the lights on, none of the other stuff matters.
Look, I'm a big baseball guy, too. I work for a baseball team. I don't think the starting right fielder for the Baylor baseball team should make as much money in revenue sharing as the starting quarterback. I promise that would not be good for the future of your athletic department as your football team tries to grow and bring more money back to the university. This has nothing to me to really do with gender and has more to do with how the revenue is being brought to a university. So if you're saying, hey, the football team brings in $100 million a year, we can allot $22 million to give back out to the athletes. The majority of that $22 million probably should go to football.
Yeah, no, it seems like a pretty common sense thing. We'll see if any kind of adjustments are made. I wonder if you get any lawsuits from this.
Yeah,
I would not be surprised if, I don't mean to paint everyone as this picture, but if some of these ambulance chaser NIL lawyers don't try to get a collective group of women and say, no, we're going to sue for this and see if there aren't adjustments made later or how that factors into it. But that's why we do a show, I guess, and we'll talk about that. We'll cross that theoretical terrible bridge when we get there.
No kidding, and that will be a bridge that I don't even know. I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to sit on my hands silently.
Drake, where you don't sit silent, though, is Locked On Big 12. Tell people about where they can find it.
Yeah, at Drake C. Toll or at LO Big 12 on Twitter and wherever you find your podcast at Locked On Big 12.
Awesome. Appreciate you, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, TJ.